So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the ADHD Reframe Project with me, host Emma Craven. Today, I'm joined by guest Noemi. So, would you like to do us a little bit of an introduction to you, please?
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I
Pleasure.
am a scientist by background. I've worked in pharma for the past 10 years, I would say. Different roles. I've been a leader, I've been a coach, mentor. But 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and it came like at a very difficult time of my life. So it was completely unexpected. And then after the diagnosis, I was like, how did I miss this for so long? The signs were there. Since then, I had a bit of a journey. I think it's something that we've all heard before, a bit of a grief, then self-acceptance. But what I did was also wanted to turn this into something positive for others. So I opened my own coaching business for neurodivergent individuals in the workplace because I wanted to help them feeling okay in their daily work life. And I've created my own coaching model because I immediately realized that the standard coaching does not go well with our neurodivergent brains. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
So, yeah, I mean, I think we all go through the process, the grieving process, the acceptance. I'm just wondering, was there any specific thing that you did that kind of enabled you to move from the grief into self-acceptance?
Think there is anything specific. I think it's a process and it's a journey. It has to go through the pain of what if, right? What if I knew earlier? What would have my life been? Because I grew up, same as many of us, being told, oh, you're lazy or you're too emotional and you need to learn how to be less emotional. And that hurt, and it took its toll growing up. It took its toll on the way that I had my relationships with friends and with partners. So there is a lot of grief that comes after that because there is a lot of the uncertainty of what your life would have been. But I think what I started to do is to look at those things not anymore as flaws. It's just how my brain works. Rather than beating myself up like I did for my entire life, I started thinking this is just like having red hair instead of having blonde hair. It's just another phenotype. And this is probably the scientist in me that says that,
Well,
but
I love science, so yeah, don't talk
so
about scientific stuff.
for me it was that. And then I think consciously what I started to do was unmasking. And funny enough, like I've seen my traits coming up more and more and more, but I realized also that I was less tired and less overwhelmed at the end of the day, and I had more energies. So I saw the good of it. I saw that I was creating a new path towards myself, towards my true identity. And that is fulfilling.
Yeah. I love that because sometimes we don't really know what our true identity is, but other times we might do. So since I started I do like science now. Since I started studying, I'm studying psychology. And when I first started, I used to say, yeah, but it's because I've got ADHD or it's this or it's that. And it's like, my partner and a few people that I've met through my university have said to me, but you're not just Emma who's got ADHD. There's a lot more to you than just the four letters. So yeah, I love that, and trust me, I talk about science all day long because unless it's quantitative or statistics, because then my brain just switches off and is like, yeah, no, this is just boring. Just so tell me a little bit about the scientist in you then. I'm intrigued.
Well, it started, I studied biology as my bachelor degree, and then I did a master in biotechnology. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I worked in different companies. I developed some drugs, worked for some biotechs, and then I've been working for a big CDMO, which is contractual manufacturing organization. So we manufacture drugs for pharmaceutical companies for a few years now. And yeah, so I work in QC, which is quality control, which, I find really interesting because you manufacture a drug, but without the help of QC that tells you, yeah, this one is ready to go, you don't have a product. You don't have anything that can come out. So, and I find really interesting. I worked in method validation, which is validating the testing methods that are required to demonstrate that that product is the right product, that it's safe. Yeah, I've always find it interesting. And I still do. Like, I don't think I will ever leave science, to be honest.
I mean, since I started studying, I get obsessed with neuroscience. I like to know what's going on in the brain, obviously, because of the ADHD. But I've got other medical, so I've got fibromyalgia, and I've got a few other fun things, complex PTSD. So yeah, so I've become extremely fascinated with neuroscience because I just like to know like what's going on in the brain. And obviously as late diagnosed ADHD women, like dopamine and hormonal fluctuations is one of the areas where I'm just like, yeah, no, like I want to know a bit more about it, if that makes sense. So yeah, have you looked into anything like that?
Not for work, but for a personal interest, yes, absolutely. And this is one of the other things that I have embarked myself into when I started, because growing up, I've always been overweight, and it's always something that, I was told I was lazy because I wasn't working out enough, because I wasn't on a diet, because I wasn't sticking to the diet. And the reality is that food was my medication. It was the way I was like medicating my absence of dopamine when dopamine wasn't there, because I was massively dysregulated most of the time. And that was what I was using, that and caffeine, to the point that during my bachelor degree, I almost gave myself a caffeine intoxication because I had too much of that. And it's true, the fact that anything can be poisonous. It depends only on the quantities. So that is definitely what I'm looking at now. And I'm constantly browsing for new research paper. I've just posted something on LinkedIn the other day that they've just published recently in February, this study about dyslexia and how they have identified which genes are responsible for dyslexia. And there are more than 100 genes, which of course is not a simple cause of, oh, one gene is shut down and that's why you get dyslexia. No, it's a complex thing. And then when you look at the how conservative these genes are, that means how much they have been around. They are much, much older than the inventor of writing and therefore reading. So that means that it's not a correlation. Like the neurodivergency is something that has been there like for longer, and it is conservative, which means that it works in a way. And there was another paper that went with it that demonstrated that the genes that are responsible for dyslexia are also found in ADHD. So they have many that are um, they are related. And it's really interesting because we now know about the co-occurrences of neurodevelopmental conditions, but before it wasn't even possible. And I think there is a massive gap when it comes to diagnosis, because you have to be diagnosed one at a time, which it takes a massive emotional toll. Let's not talk about time and money, because I don't want to go into the NHS and the waiting list. But in terms of also how the signs are showing up, I think that is massive, the gap that we need to pull. So I think this is what I'm currently focusing on,
Yeah.
rather than the hormones. I think I will need a full lab.
Yeah. I know there's lots and lots of research being done as we speak, particularly for us women. But yeah, there is a huge kind of, there's like a massive gaping like gap in research, historical research. But yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated like anything. I'm almost positive I'm dyslexic as well as ADHD, but uh, getting a diagnosis of dyslexia is almost impossible. So it's very expensive in the UK, and it's because I do struggle with like pronunciations like you've just found out. I literally cannot pronounce like certain sounds of words. It's just a little bit weird, um and I can't read a lot of text and take it all in. I need everything on audio, so I listen, and I do normally just say, oh yeah, it's because I've got ADHD. The processing in my brain is just different, and I don't think it is just because I've got ADHD, but it's just I don't think there's any point to getting a dyslexia assessment, and it costs too much money. So yeah, but it's fascinating. That is fascinating. So um, yeah, I mean, I can talk about things like that all day long. Um, but yeah, so
Likewise.
yeah. So my brain's just decided to stop working. Completely and utterly forgot what I was gonna ask. It's gone.
It's okay.
It's gone.
I was going to say that, as you said, like that you think about dyslexia. I think that um, I'm almost positive that I'm also autistic rather than just ADHD. Um, and it took me the same process that it took me to get me to the ADHD, kind of starting like, wait, but I do this and I do that as well. And now I realize that most of the traits that are specific for autism and particularly for ADHD, I have them all. But when I think about a differential diagnosis, right, having another diagnosis for autism, what is it going to give me? Because my identity has already been shaped in with my first diagnosis. I'm neurodivergent, so it doesn't change anything. And in reality, the thing that might change something is the ADHD diagnosis, because it grants you access to medication if you want it. Now, when I got my diagnosis, I decided not to take medications, not because I don't believe in them. I'm a scientist, I absolutely do, but because I thought that I've lived almost 40 years with my messy and very loud brain, that I thought if it would go quiet, I would probably freak out right now. I don't think I'm used to. So I thought, you know what? I created enough infrastructure now that I think I'm okay.
It's a very controversial thing to talk about, though, medication or not medication. And I know it's a very personal decision to make. I chose to take medication. I also have traits of autism as well. Mine's more sensory. I just get really overwhelmed with sensory stuff quite easily. But primarily for me, it's definitely ADHD. So I don't think that I would go down the route of being assessed for autism. Um, but yeah, I think it's fascinating because I know that Um, there's a few people that I follow on LinkedIn that post regularly around the Audi ADHD or whatever it is that it's, I don't even know, and I know it adds, obviously the two things together can add like massive, just, my friend explained it to me a little while ago as the ADHD part of the brain or life is chaotic and, emotional dysregulation, and you don't know, you're messy and but you're super creative and you've got all these positives as well. But then, you've got the autism that is very rigid and needs to follow logical steps and can't necessarily kind of like deviate from the list or the plans or whatever, and it's like, so the two things are like battling with each other all the time. It must be
Yeah,
exhausting.
it is. And that is probably the thing that I think we have the massive gap, because people believe that having both just means the traits of one plus the traits of others, while the reality is that they interconnect with each other and they create something that is completely different. And it creates this constant push and pull that adds to a lot of strain.
Yeah, and I've seen that a lot with other students that I've connected with since I started studying. It's Yeah, and also as well, a few people I've spoken to recently, they said that, and I don't know if this is across the board, but they said they tried medication, but it felt like the autism was worse with the ADHD meds.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's like, and it's the first time I'd ever heard that, and I was like, what? Really? And they're like, yeah. So, it's a difficult decision to make whether you want to medicate or not medicate, and yeah, it's just. So is there anything specific then that you've implemented that helps you to manage day by day?
Think definitely what I preach as as a coach, which is the regulation. I realize that, and that is probably the therapy, the cognitive behavioral therapy that I had helped me a lot, realizing that I wasn't paying attention to what my needs were. I were putting the needs of everybody else like in front of mine. And that meant that even when I was at my lowest, I would still push through. And then I will have these massive crashes, that what I called my amoeba days, where I could only sit on the couch. I couldn't do anything rather than scrolling on my phone, because my executive function was gone. The problem is that before I didn't have the language and the knowledge to understand that. All of a sudden I did. So realizing that, I also realized that it was avoidable in a way, and bringing in small regulation steps after everything that I did was crucial. So now I know that if I have, like, I don't know, an intensive day of meetings, I know that I need at least an hour to decompress, because otherwise I won't be able to be a good parent to my son, because I'm dysregulated. I don't have the wavelength to attend to his needs. Or same thing is, if I go into hyperfocus, now I know that I need to build myself a way out of it. Otherwise, I will go in so deeply that I will forget to eat, I will forget to drink, and then I will have a migraine. So I created myself all of these tools where I have alarms everywhere, things that ring left, right, and center, but they help, and they help me stay healthy and regulated.
Yeah, it is challenging though when you've got young children. I mean, my daughter's 27 now and she doesn't live at home anymore, but I do see my friends kind of struggling being parents, obviously particularly women. But yeah, so hats off to you. I'm all for an alarm or a calendar reminder, but sometimes I do still forget. You still
Yeah.
still forget. So yeah, there's no like, there's not a complete foolproof something that we can use, is there? It's
No, it's
just
not. It's absolutely not. And I think the thing to understand is that it's okay. It's okay if sometimes it fails, because it will. We don't have to beat ourselves up for that, because it's just how our brain works, and we do our best to make it work. But as you said, it's not foolproof.
yeah.
It sometimes it will fail, and the good thing is that you know that. And when it comes for work, for example, I've always been um overachiever. I always try to demonstrate that I'm on top of everything, and that means that I can usually do the work of 5 days compressed into one. But it comes with a cost, and understanding that cost, it, I think it changed a lot for me. And in the same way, like I know that I have alarms that remind me, for example, of birthdays, so that I don't forget my friends' birthdays and stuff. But I still have moments where I think that I've sent a message because I thought of it, and now I'm convinced that I sent it, but I never did. But people now know, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, I it was in my head when I sent you the message." Like, that, it's fine, it's okay. Or replying to messages. I don't know how many times people send me some, and I'm sure that I responded, but it's all in my head.
It's exactly the same. And then 2 weeks go by, and all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh my God, I didn't actually send that reply. I thought about it, but then got distracted."
No, the only reason why I notice it's because I think, why haven't they got back to me? And then I go back to the conversation. I'm like, oh, that's why, because I never sent it. Hmm?
Yeah. I love that. It's self-advocacy though, isn't it? You kind of I used to say like grassing yourself up, but it's not grassing like as in, it's not, it's just telling people like, once you educate or once you teach people like, or even just, talk to them about these things, even if they're, whether they've got ADHD or not. But the more you talk, the more, for me, the more I've talked about it, the more people that understand, the less there's the kind of guilt and shame and stuff like that, which it does still get triggered. It's not just gone away completely, but it makes it like that understanding, that mutual understanding, just makes it less emotionally draining, I think. So yeah, definitely. Definitely, particularly I think with my daughter, because she says she hasn't got, I don't have ADHD, and I'm like, but that, she's old enough now to kind of to make that decision herself. So, but yeah, I think after I got diagnosed and over the years, and when I started understanding more about ADHD and how my symptoms present, and then how I can put coping strategies in which are never foolproof. But, the more that I've kind of got to know myself and my symptoms and stuff, the more it's enabled me to be able to talk, about it to my partner, to my daughter, to my friends that don't have ADHD. Most of them do. Um, but it's just by having that open dialogue, and it's since I have just explained things to my daughter. She seemed, because she could, funny story. She when she was still living at home, she used to ask me a simple question, and I always go back to this one: have we got any more cat food, Mum? And I could not give a, I literally, it's like, and then she stood there and she's like, why can you not just give me a yes or no answer? And I'm like, because I can't. And then she's like, "What?" But then it was like a month or maybe a year later when I was talking to her about that, and she was like, "Oh, well, you make a bit more sense to me now then." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's like I couldn't. I had to go back, like the backstory, to just to give the answer,
Yeah.
which can be
And
exhausting."
it is exhausting, but this is one of the other things that I found that my diagnosis has helped quite a lot with my relationship with my husband, because there were things that he wouldn't understand. And he thought that, not that I was making them to hurt him, but he couldn't understand why. For example, if we had an argument, he would immediately like count down 5 minutes later. Well, for me, sorry, it took longer than that. Let's just leave it at that. And he couldn't understand, because it was like, it was a stupid argument over something very silly. So why are you still worked up about it? Because for me, it's physical. It's not something that stays only in my head. Like, that argument replays in my head over and over and over and over. And then it comes with a lot of other things like the lovely RSD that we
Yeah,
all know.
and
And
love, not.
yeah, and it's painful, and it's physically painful. And to explain that, I think our relationship has improved, because he now knows that he doesn't have to take it personally. It's not an attack against him. It's just me processing the situation in a different way.
Yeah. And I do think that there is still a lot of misunderstanding around, when we do things, like you've just explained, like we're actually doing it intentionally, and we're not. It's we've got no control over it. It's just it is. But yeah, the RSD.
Yeah. I had this example the other day. my my husband came home with the grocery shopping, but with the grocery shopping, it also came with a parcel that arrived for me. Now, there was all the grocery shopping to put away, but of course, where would my mind go? What it's
Parcel.
in the box.
Yeah.
And my husband looked at me and was like, "Why can't you just focus for 1 second on what the task is?" I'm like, "I can't." And
Yeah.
poor thing, because my son is 100% neurodivergent as well, like 100%. We don't have a diagnosis for him yet, but it's obvious in the things that he does, and he does the things exactly like me. So sometimes my poor husband sits between us, and it's like, he looks defeated.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think one of the only things that gets me through some days when it's not even when bad things happen, but I think just humor, like laughing at myself, or just like my partner regularly, he just start. I'll say something and I'll see. I can like see him laughing out the corner of my eye. He's not sitting. I'm looking that way, but he's not that way because he's sitting on the sofa. Anyway, but when I'm sitting on the sofa, ah, yes, very ADHD today. But I'll say something and he'll be laughing so much he can't breathe. And then he'll say, "It's not what you say, it's how you say it." But it's like, it's like it just comes out like I don't do it on purpose. And yeah, so I think that, just to try and keep things light-hearted some days is really important, because it just makes the days a little bit more, um manageable, and less shame. I think I feel less shame if and it's not that I'm like laughing at myself in a bad way. It's just making light of the fact that, yeah, I can't even think of an example now.
No, and I totally get it. And I think another thing that has helped quite a lot for me, it's moving away from the toxic positivity. Apart from the usual narrative of, oh, ADHD is a superpower. Sorry, no, because try to live with it and then we understand what a superpower is. But the toxic positivity also around, oh, you have to be happy. You have to look at the bright side. I'm sorry, sometimes I can't. Sometimes I just have to dwell into my emotion. I have to live through that. Then I can come out the other way. But just putting that extra weight on us, like, I don't think it helps. And this is something that I do with my clients, like every day, try to make them understand that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if another person doesn't do it the same way. It doesn't matter if people think that you should do that. What you feel is what you feel. You just have to go through that, feel it, own it, then move on.
Yeah. I love that because we do, because I'm obviously, being undiagnosed until we're an adult, and then all of a sudden kind of being diagnosed and starting to understand yourself. Yeah, I think a lot of the time, I mean, I don't have a problem with calling ADHD a superpower. I prefer to call it gifted, because there are things that we can do as ADHD people that other people can't. But then there's lots of things that they can do that we can't. So it's there's no right and wrong way of explaining it, is it? But I just think that I've completely and utterly forgotten what I was going to say again.
You were talking about the superpower that you
Yes,
call it
yeah,
gifted.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, oh yeah, and we have to be happy all the time.
No,
Why? Is this like some unwritten rule somewhere that? Funnily enough, the essay that I've just written is positive psychology. And you know
it all
what?
comes back to that.
I was really. Obviously, the listeners don't know the backstory. So I thought I was really, really going to enjoy it, because it's all around, reframing and looking at the positives and strength based, focused, and yeah, I don't know why, but I really struggled with it. I was just like, and I don't even know why. That'll probably realise in a few months' time. It'll just, the penny will drop, and I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's why. But yeah, for the listeners today, I was nearly late. I was meant to submit today, which I did submit today, but we popped out to the supermarket this morning, sitting in the Tesco's car park, wouldn't start, had to get the RAC out. So by the time what should have took a 20 minutes took an hour and a half, and then I needed to read through my assignment. I needed to make sure it was all correct, etc., etc. Then I saved it somewhere and I couldn't find it again, and then I was just literally pulling my hair out, and I submitted it with 23 seconds to go, and then was a few minutes late to join and speak to Noemi. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Sorry, I have a problem with pronouncing certain letters and words. So yeah, I was a few minutes late. So yeah, it's like that positive psychology. I'm just like, no, it's not. It wasn't really for me, which is sad. But I just didn't. I don't know. I just didn't enjoy it. So yeah. But yeah, that kind of, toxic. But wait, but yeah, but we can't be happy all the time.
No.
But,
No. And this is probably it for me. Like, I've learned to be more compassionate with myself. I've learned to accept the flaws when there are, and accept the good moments, and just go with what my brain is telling me on that day. Sometimes I do this analogy a lot with my clients, and I say that our brain is like a toddler, and sometimes you have to trick it in order to do stuff. And some other times it's just a toddler having a tantrum, and you have to cuddle it and let the moment pass.
yeah. And I think self-compassion is really important for us to kind of try and implement in our lives, because, I've always pushed myself. I've always had to push myself harder, just to achieve. And then I've also had to, uh, like, there's so many negative experiences and negative conditioning that I had most of my adult childhood and most of my adult life, that, I got to the diagnosis, and then it was like I went through that grieving process, like you said, and it was like I just felt really sad for myself, but it wasn't like a bad sad, if that makes sense. It was just like, and it was almost like I needed to give myself a hug, because it just kind of, all the pennies started dropping, and I was like, oh, so there's actually, having ADHD, there are a lot of things that we have absolutely no control over. But I just love the humour. Literally, humour is like days like today, where you just can't, like, it's like Calamity Jane, but on a completely different level. It's like, and some days I literally just get things done just by gripping onto the desk and thinking, I need to just get this finished. And then hopefully tomorrow I can rest and stuff. And yeah, my partner does say to me that it looks like the hyperfocus of the deadline, which kicks in on a Friday when I'm due to submit on a Monday. He always says to me, it always looks so stressful, or it's hard work. And trust me, I've tried to do things differently, but it's just, exactly. Exactly. And it's only another person with ADHD that gets that.
Yeah, like the amount of time that I've been told when I was at uni, oh, if you study a little bit every day, then you don't have to arrive at the end when you have to give the exam. It's like, uh-huh, sure. I wish I could. That No, that's not how my brain works. And luckily, like, I have a photographic memory. So the moment then that I have to do it, the moment that I have that hyper focus, I can do it in a really short period of time with that urge that is the deadline. Without it, there is no chance. And this is probably the thing about self acceptance. It's very difficult because we've grown up listening to so many negative comments. Like, one of the things that I've been told the most is that I was, oh my God, what's the term? That basically I was never completing anything. I was starting something and then I would let it drop, and then I would start something else. And that was probably one of the hardest thing that I had to do after my diagnosis, saying, so it wasn't me, or it wasn't like something broken within me. It's just how my brain works. And that hurt even more because it were my own parents that would tell me that, right? And I was like, so why couldn't I have a little bit of compassion from them rather than this negative comment? And why would I give that to myself? But I've learned the hard way that, if I start something, it's because I'm getting interested into that something. And I made my strength to being, what's the say? J double trades,
Jack of all
master of none.
trades, yeah, master of none. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm turning that into a strength with all the downsides, with all the difficulties. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's great. Now, you mentioned a little bit about coaching when we first started talking. So I know that you've done something unique in your approach to coaching. So would you like to talk a little bit about that?
I would love that.
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
It's when I opened my coaching business, I wanted to do it to support people at work. And I've been a coach for years, and I've supported professional in the workplaces, but I've realized immediately that the standard approach to coaching would not work for neurodivergent minds. And the reason is that the coaching usually starts with, oh, let's find some clarity. Right. Now, imagine a neurodivergent mind that comes to the first session and hears that, and first of all, it's put off most often than not, because it's like, what do you want from me? I don't even know who I am right now. Because the problem is, I think it sits at regulation. And we don't know what regulation means. We don't know what regulation we require personally, because we don't have a system that is one size fits all. Even if we're both ADHD, what works for me might not as well work for you. So it needs to be tailored on how our brain works and what our rhythm is. And as we were saying, what part of our lives and our journeys we are at. Because it is one thing if you are a woman in the 30s, it is a different thing if you are a woman in her 50s. So it needs to be adopted. So what I've done is creating this new coaching cycle that starts with regulation. So it starts understanding what regulation actually means, and what do you have to do in order to regulate? What works for you? What is the thing that makes you relax? Or what I used to say is what makes the volume go down a bit, because that is the goal, I would say. And another thing that I've discovered is that people look for efficiency when they come to a coach. They're like, I want to be more efficient. I want to be more productive. And I made it one of my mantras in my coaching session that productivity is not the goal. Productivity is a byproduct of our brain. The goal is regulation. So it starts with that. It then goes into clarification. So try to understand a little bit of clarity about who we are, where we are at the point of our cycles, then putting those into sustainable action. So something that works for our brain, for our lifestyle, and then integrate with the recovery. So it's a cycle of sprint and rest, and try to get to understand what is the width of that sprint and what is the width of that rest that you need for your own person.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Sprint rest, sprint rest. Yeah. Regulation. So would that be emotional regulation, or would that just be mental regulation, or would it just be regulation kind of whatever the client brings to you on that given day?
It's all a bit. And it starts with an MOT. It starts with understanding where is the noise coming from in your life. So what is going on in your life? Does it start, is it because of work? So you have a cognitive load? Is it because something happening in your life? So you have an emotional load? Is it because of something else? So is it a sensory load? Because maybe the environment that you are at is giving you this sensory overload that then you get dysregulated. And the thing is that the moment that you start noticing this thing, it's like, oh, wait, maybe it's that. And maybe it's all of that. Maybe it's only one thing. But the moment that you realize what are the culprits, what are those things that turn the volume up and then make your system overloaded, then you can go and do something about it. And it's small incremental steps. You can't go from 0 to 100. All you need to do is to understand how you lower it like a minimum. And how can you do the minimum so that you can start recovering, but then you don't feel guilty about not being productive. Once you find that balance, then you start increasing.
So yeah, for me, I'm either a million miles an hour, or I literally can't speak. There's kind of, or I'm just super glued to the sofa because I'm exhausted, and I don't even talk or anything. There's no kind of in between. But so I suppose it's for me trying to kind of keep myself going when, not necessarily when I'm exhausted and burnt out, but post submission, today, tomorrow, the next week, the next day, the next day. But I think it's whilst I'm kind of studying the topic, and then when I do the writing, like I have realized that I need to kind of have accountability. So I need to break things down into weekly tasks, but then sometimes as well, the tasks I need to break them down into, right, so from 9 till 10, I'm gonna do whatever it is, look for some academic sources to use, and then I'm gonna have a break, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna do something different, and then I'll have a break, and it's like, but in that academic writing stage when it's just all that you're doing, like, I break the day up hour from hour because it there's certain things within academic studying that I love. There's things that I'm like, "Oh," it's just I can't and obviously having ADHD, we need the novelty of something to kind of make it a little bit exciting and to get, kind of intrigue ourselves and stuff, don't we? So we need that novelty, but it's, when things I'm not interested in it, or they don't, make me feel a little bit excited, or there's no novelty. One of the biggest things that I've learned to do is to, first of all, talk about them to someone else that understands, and second of all, break them down into manageable chunks, and then hour by hour or day by day, um, like get them done. And one of the most important things that I heard at the end of last year was, if you're writing a research paper or an essay or whatever, do the bits that you really don't like first. And I was like, oh, okay. And then do all the other things and trust me, it works, because what I would usually do is do all the exciting things, all the creative, the critical thinking, building the arguments, the real life, whatever, I can't remember what the word is. And then I'd leave the results section to the last thing. And then that would literally be like, oh, it's just, statistics, quantitative research methods. It's just like, I don't think I'll ever get my head around it, because I'm just like, oh, I'm just not me microphone. Sorry. I'm just like, I've got no interest in it. So yeah, I don't know if any of our listeners, would like to hear about that, but yeah, do the boring bits that you really have no interest in first, because then that allows you to kind of your creative juices to flow. So yeah, I did that this time and it actually worked really well. Although I admit,
The things that I found it works for me is to gamify what I need to do. So I had my friends that for my birthday she hidden in my flat more than 100 small plastic ducks. And so I have this lying around now and I use them. So what I do is that I give myself tasks and I categorize those tasks as, are those needed for work? Are those needed to stroke my ego? Are those needed because I need to sustain my family, or, there are admin that needs to be done. They cannot be pushed away. Once I have categorized them, that gives me an opportunity to prioritize rather than based on what I'm interested in what is actually needed. But then I give myself a prize for each of those. So for example, I say, if I complete this, I win one small plastic duck. And at the end of the day or the end of the week, if I completed them all and I have the set amount of ducks that I put myself like as a goal, I would reward myself with something. And it could be something small like, oh, I'm going to go and have a Starbucks coffee, or I'm going to buy something that I had in my Amazon cart for a long time. But, these small things that will bring you the dopamine. And it really helps.
love that. Yeah. Well, when someone said to me gamify, I think I probably should have asked them to explain it, but now you've just explained it like that, it actually makes sense. Like, I'm trying to think what I could do or what I could collect during the week that would make me feel like similar to your ducks. I'm going to have a think about that, aren't I? But, Yeah, so fascinating, honestly, fascinating. Is there any so I always like to kind of think about people that are waiting to be diagnosed or that are newly diagnosed, or even if they're young people, children. Um, is there any kind of anything you'd like to say to them when they're sitting there in that kind of grief, or they're sitting there in that confusion and they don't know what to do or where to do it or how?
I would say talk about it. Talk about it with people that gets it, because you will not feel alone. You probably felt alone most of your life. So now it's the time to find your tribe and find people that understand you and they accept you. The more you talk about it, the more you will realize that there is nothing wrong with you. As I said, it's just another phenotype.
Yeah. There's absolutely nothing wrong with us. We're not deficit. We're not disordered. We're different. That's kind of, I love that. The difference is um that's kind of the that's, yeah, it's just how it's how I see myself. And it's not a bad different, it's a good different as well. You know, we bring a lot of positivity, you know, a lot of humor and all sorts. So yeah, I mean, you can reach out to either of us if you would like to talk. I'm always happy to talk to people. And
Likewise.
one of my friends said to me a little while ago, she said, "You know what, Emma, you do like a good old talk." And I was like, "Yeah, no, I do." And then she was like, "Yeah, but you're really good at listening as well." And I'm like, "Yeah." She was like, "That's not normal for people with ADHD, isn't it?" It's like, I don't know, because I've only got, I'm a, you know, it's, but, you know, I'm also a very good listener. And I think that that is, um, yeah, that's, I don't know what I was going to say now. My brain is just,
That people can reach out to you at any time.
you see, I need you on, hello, my brain has just had a fart. What was I going to say?
I'm impressed that I was following, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, yeah. So if you're struggling, anyway, you know, please do reach out to either of us, because I'm sure, um, you know, I'd always make time for someone that needed to talk, because I think that's really important. And I think there's a lot of people that don't really have anyone to talk about that gets it. So when you do find people that get it, it's, you know, like I hold on to them like, no, you're not getting away from me because you understand me and I don't have to mask in front of you. So it's, yeah, it's a beautiful, yeah, them connections and them friendships that we make as adult women as well. Once we get diagnosed and then we find our people, and it's like, yeah, wow, yeah, this is, it's amazing. So there was something else I was going to ask you, but unfortunately it's gone out of my head. Again, it's gone. Oh yeah, that was it. So, would you like to talk a little bit about your podcast? Because I know you do a podcast.
Yeah. And my podcast is called the Spacious Brain Podcast. And it's because in true ADHD form, when I started my journey, I devoured books and audiobooks and podcasts. And one of the things that I've noticed about the podcast is that they were selling this story of, I didn't know that I have ADHD, and now I know. And look at me, I'm a billionaire with 5 companies because this is how good I am now. And I started believing that, yes, it's good to show that reality, right? That there are people that have that success, but it's not the only reality. The reality is that there are people out there that are struggling on a daily basis, and the support is non existent, because the moment that we get our diagnosis, we don't have any support and we're left alone. We're often misdiagnosed as, suffering from anxiety, depression, and all of that while we're left alone. So, what I wanted is to create a space for people to tell their story and tell that, no, we're still struggling. Yes, we might be able to, as I was saying, doing the work of 5 days compressed into one, but it's not a superpower. It comes with a cost, it comes with a very high cost. And people should know that. And yeah, so that is my podcast. It's basically giving space to people to tell their stories and there are real stories about real people, real neurodivergent people.
And hopefully I'm going to be a guest soon. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, one of the main reasons why I wanted to set up this podcast, I think, I did a lot. I've always wanted, I already always known I'm good at talking. So, oh, sorry, just laughing. So a podcast was a bit kind of something that I wanted to do, but I didn't really have the confidence to do it until I started studying psychology, and then I got used to talking to people that I don't know, and then here we are. But the main reason why I wanted to do like the ADHD reframe project is because there's lots of narratives around kind of medical model, social model, um, and blah blah blah, and I looked for the kind of reframing, and so I found a little niche. But I just, for me, I just turn up as myself. I talk about my experiences. I try to not like toxic positivity, but I do try to kind of understand myself. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so yeah. And then I'll laugh, and then I'm like, yeah, okay. And then it starts making sense. But one of the main reasons is because there's not a lot out there that's really strength based when it comes to ADHD women or adults, ADHD adults, but mostly us women. And yeah, I just want to just spread like positive messaging rather than that toxic negativity clickbait that drives me insane. So yeah, my approach is, you just turn up, we'll have a chat, and then that's it. Jobs are good, and as my grandma used to say. It's been a long day already, and it's only Monday. But what an absolute pleasure! It is so nice to have met you.
Likewise, like it's
Honestly,
been a very nice talk.
well, yeah. I turn up as me, you turn up as you, and we just, it's yeah, thoroughly
It
enjoyed it.
works.
So I will with the episode when I post it on Spotify, what I'll actually do is link. I've written the name down of your podcast now, so I will link it in with this episode when it gets published. And then for our listeners, I will put your no wait, I see it's gone. Noemi,
Noemi.
is that Noemi?
Yes.
Yes. Pronunciations of certain words, I swear, I'm just like, eh. So yeah, I'll put the link to your website as well if anyone would like some help with any coaching, or even just to have a talk. So yeah, what an absolute pleasure. It has been really nice to meet you. And
Likewise, Emma. Thank you so much.
thank you for coming. Yeah, it's been amazing. So to our listeners, apparently this is what I've got to start saying because I never say it. Please follow me, not just on the podcast platforms, but on social media. And if you know anyone that would benefit from listening to any of the episodes of this podcast, then please share. But for today, to the listeners, thank you. Noemi, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, Noemi. Okay. You see, you can do anything that you want to just by giving it a good go. So yeah, and for today, take care and goodbye.